Hello guys, welcome to Detonator Show. This is the podcasting show which will give you some descriptive and unsettling facts about the technologies right now around the world. Today, this is the very first episode of our show, and as it is close to my heart, we are discussing artificial intelligence and machine learning. Today, we have with us the very knowledgeable and the highly experienced professor in this field, Dr. Cuneyt Akcora. He has done bachelor's in electronics and electrical engineering. He has done double major in computer science from Turkey. He has done masters in USA in computer science. He has done PhD in artificial intelligence. He is right now an assistant professor at University of Manitoba in Canada. So he has many publications, almost 25 to 30 publications, and he has more than 2000 citations on his name. He has attended many international conferences. His articles were published in the international conferences. So guys, let's dive into today's video. I hope you are as excited as I am, and I encourage you to stick around till the end for some fascinating facts and takeaways. Let's embark on this journey together.
Dr. Sunat, so would you tell us like how did you find AI as your career path?
Thank you, Jainil. Thank you for having me. So, if you look at my education, I was trained as an electrical and electronics engineering, and then I double majored in computer science. In let's say 2003 or something, AI was not as big as it is right now. Most of the hot developments started after 2012. In 2016, when I came to US for a postdoc again, the second time, I was working on graph machine learning as usual. But then I noticed that the whole computer science field is moving towards AI. So I deliberately tried to position myself as an AI ML person. So it was more like a desire. I in the beginning, when I was talking about AI in 2016, I didn't have publications because I was working on graph machine learning. My publications were there, but slowly and slowly, if you aspire to something, you become of it. So I positioned myself as an AI person since 2016.
Oh, that's nice to hear. So basically, I'm gonna attach a link where you can see his achievements, his all the publications. So I saw that you have done many publications, more than 20 publications as your citations at least in past 3 years as only. So what you have done to position yourself, and you have gained interest in bitcoins, blockchain algorithms, and graph primary data sets. So how does that interest grow?
So I remember in 2016 when I came to US as a postdoc, we submitted a paper to the KDD conference, which is a top conference, and it was rejected. And the reviews were strange. And I was looking at the reviews, and I told myself, this paper should have gotten accepted. Why is it rejected? Of course, now looking back, I understand that it was rejected because the field was moving from graph mining to other things like graph neural networks and so on. At that point, I said, I need to find a new topic. Otherwise, I will risk my postdoc. So it was just a decision based on n equal to 1. Just with one review set, I said, okay, this is not going to work. I need to find something new. And I was reading about blockchain since 2008, actually. When I was doing my master's, I read the first paper by Nakamoto. And at that time, I didn't see much value in it. But in 2016, when I was reading it, I kind of liked the idea very much. And as soon as I realized that there's a transaction network, and as a graph machine learning person, I can just extract the transaction graph and then do whatever I want with it with predictions. I became a blockchain data analytics person. It kind of became a major component of my research. If you look at it, for example, last week I was a panelist at the Coinbase Machine
Yeah.
Learning Summit, and it is very difficult for a professor in Canada, an assistant professor, to appear with the head of machine learning from Coinbase. Blockchain kind of gives you this prominence. I could not get prominence with, for example, explainable AI or graph machine learning yet.
Okay, that's very nice to hear. So before we move on to the core topic, would you like to explain our viewers what is artificial intelligence and machine learning in very layman terms for the viewers ranging from 16 years to 60 years who haven't ever seen computer science field?
Yes, that's a good question, but AI people, computer science people are still divided in how to define this issue. If you remember in the course, in the AI course that I was teaching, you were a student there. So I was talking about the initial ideas, creating robots that look like us, then creating robots that think like us, and then at the end we reduce the scope to robots who just do the rational thing for the next step. So AI is this idea of creating sentient beings that can help us in some tasks. Machine learning is just a subfield of it. The difference between machine learning and AI is that AI is more about algorithms. Machine learning is more about learning from data by doing mistakes. So in machine learning, we have data, we make predictions, and from these predictions, we learn from our mistakes. AI in general is more about developing robots, developing algorithms. If you look at the beginning, for example, AI started with search algorithms, and then it
Yeah.
became adversarial search, and then it became constraint satisfaction problems. So AI, this whole umbrella, machine learning is just a subfield of it. But that subfield is now more popular than I would say.
Yeah. So, would you give examples on a bigger perspective, like how governments use it for geopolitical power gain or in space stations? Just a couple of examples so that viewers can understand how it is so impactful in our today's generation and future generation.
Yes, one thing is definitely countries, governments are using it to spy on other governments through satellite imagery, for example. Yesterday, I was talking to a colleague and he mentioned an interesting use case. He said that because of clouds and stuff, satellites cannot take precise pictures of something moving on the ground. So they take pictures of that place and just move on and then represent that specific cell with, let's say, 10,000 features. And then from this whole 10,000 features of many cells, they try to understand if there is a tree or if there is a military vehicle or something like this. So this is called, if I'm not wrong, it's called tele geometry or something like this, like looking from the satellites. This is for the imagery. So within the countries, governments are using machine learning and AI to kind of track their citizens. If you have been to Singapore, for example, Singapore has these cameras at every street corner, and Singapore is a very small country, so that means they cover all of the country with cameras. In Turkey, we also have these cameras covering main arteries and roads, but in the case of Singapore, I was also in Beijing, they also have cameras everywhere. I'm afraid governments will find more ways to use machine learning for detecting, tracking their citizens. And if you look at blockchain, let me merge into that. Uh, Governments are now trying to create their own blockchains where they can control who can spend money on what. So right now we have paper money. It means when I pay you $10, you don't know where the money came from. You just accept my dollars. If we have these blockchain based systems, now the governments can say don't accept coins coming from Cuneyt because they know my address. So you cannot even spend money. In some countries, you cannot even buy train tickets without using ID, for example.
Oh.
Imagine in the future when we have machine learning, real time tracking, governments see you moving from Winnipeg to Montreal and saying you should not have moved. So they will know this and they will prevent you from doing anything. So I'm afraid we will see more and more oppressive use within countries. I'm not worried that much about countries using AI against each other. I'm more worried about countries using AI on their own
Own
citizens.
citizens. Yeah, that's harmful, invading the privacy.
Yes.
So, there's the most debatable question in the whole century, that are the machines, AI and ML, helpful, like they're a threat or advantage to the human race entirely? Like, obviously, at the smaller perspectives, we know that it is grabbing the jobs of some people who haven't developed and evolved with the generation. But also at the bigger perspective, at if we can say that for entire human race, I mean, is it a threat to entire human race, to abomination of the human race?
I think it's an existential threat. In the short term, we will see benefits. If you think about it, uh, the tools, the jobs that my ancestors were doing in the 17th century, or a typical farmer, how many of them are still done by humans? Almost none of them. No one is tilling the fields and so on, right? Machines have taken over. So what happened to these people that were working on fields? They became nurses. They go to university. They study arts. So if you look at the history of human civilization, as soon as we gathered the funds, the resources to allow some people to not work, we had progress. So AI is kind of giving us these things so that we don't have to work. We don't even have to take care of animals anymore. AI is taking care of them, milking them, and so on. So we can dedicate humans to other jobs. However, how long will this last? Like, how long will it take for the AI to be so smart that it will treat us as we treat frogs? We kind of let frogs live, but we don't allow them much, right? They cannot come to our houses, they cannot take our jobs, even if they are able to. In this case, AI, I think, will do the same. So we will see benefits for some time, but there will be a break point, there will be a tipping point. Beyond this, it will be a threat.
I thought so. So, are there any regulations that should be kept by us or the governments that can help us, like to avoid this issue, or it's not avoidable?
uh, it is only avoidable if you close the system. For example, I was looking at the NeurIPS, one of the AI's leading conferences yesterday. They mentioned that they should not share the call for papers mentioned that if you are an author, you develop something like a large language model, an AI model, you should not put it where everyone can access it because you don't know the risks. So now we see some pushback, like you cannot develop a technology, just share the code. Because in the last 20 years, the paradigm was that everything should be open source as much as possible. So if there is something useful, a useful algorithm, it should be known by everyone. If you look at the publication industry also, it all revolves around this, right? The West has created all these venues, conferences, journals, and kind of their publications are online and you can buy them for $30. So this brings the question, for example, the Chinese invented the gunpowder. How did they use it to their advantage? They could not use it to their advantage. They could not invade any country with gunpowder because it became known immediately, right? So with technology, however, in the West developed especially, they were open source, they were online, so we could all benefit. I'm a professor here from Turkey. Why? Because I could read these books that were accessible. I could learn languages and so on.
Okay.
Going to the future, if you want to stop AI, we need to move towards a closer system. So the government will say you cannot publish this research, it is too important. You cannot uh, allow everyone to access it. We need to track. Even in the US right now, they are starting to do it. I was trying to send one of my PhD students to Texas for a visiting position. In the past, you could just get a tourist visa and arrive there. Now it turns out the professor that invites must get the written permission from the department head. The department head must ask other people. So they are making it more and more difficult to move researchers to kind of interact with other researchers.
Okay. So, don't you think it's almost impossible because of the web, that the we are in the Web 3 generation, and it's very evident that everything is transparent. You can make everything transparent. I mean, nobody has ever control on the web.
I mean, eventually, yes. If it goes back to a closed system, I think we will find ways. Look
Okay.
at the torrent technology in the US. They tried to stop all these sharing of music and stuff. And what happened at the end? YouTube came and said you can share, but the revenue will go to the original artist.
Okay.
So even there, in such a lucrative business, they could not stop. In Web3 and other technologies, I think governments will have difficulty to stop it. Remember the researcher, I think she is Russian, sharing all the articles online on a pirated website. The government sees the website and then she uploads the papers to a new website every 2 years. It moves around. So this is an example. You cannot stop it.
Okay. Yeah, that's what. So now, coming to the geopolitics, like, which country do you think is advancing in geopolitics with the use of this modern technology? Before, it was the nuclear power that was the leading power in geopolitics. Now, do you think the AI and ML has more charge than the nuclear power?
I believe so. I believe so. I think so far Europe has fallen behind because they want to regulate everything. They even tried to ban large language models last week. So Europe is not there. I say US is still a leading power in technology, but we also see technology coming from Singapore and, for example, China.
Yeah.
Uh, China especially has an edge when it comes to creating technologies that young people want. So in the machine learning part, they have this advantage. Look at all the TikTok and other companies that everyone is using. Even my mother is using TikTok. I was quite surprised. this shows the Chinese power in this field.
Okay. So yeah, I saw that the ranking of the research papers published every year, as Switzerland is first and Singapore is second, and then China is behind, and then US, and then Italy. So, but the investments on the companies that produce the AI and ML products is higher in other countries. For example, US is common, UK is there, China is third, and India is fifth, and the fourth is I suppose Israel. So what, which of the set of the countries will advance better, you think, like the one where there are investments or the one there are more research papers?
I think investments. Israel is a good example. They consider the country as a startup country.
Yeah.
They are using machine learning in agriculture with great efficiency, for example. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, Research papers are good, but remember, in many uh, places we have these clique of researchers who publish papers, like cite each other. So even the research output can be misleading. Recently, I was on a conference reviewing a paper, and the same paper went to me and my colleague, my co-author. And I was asking, like, did you get this paper because it's very specific to our research area? Yes, he got it. So if we both give good reviews, the paper will be published. If not, the paper will be rejected. So when you work in cliques, you have this power that is hidden from other people. You kind of can publish a lot if you belong to the clique. So paper output can be very misleading. Citations can even be misleading. Let's look at the real use cases. What benefits it brings to ordinary people.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So basically, if these are the leading powers, they are developing so much, the investments are growing. Like just the Chat GPT had big investment from Elon Musk, who is the Tesla CEO. So he had big money in it. So the language model was produced faster than it was predicted. The prediction before that, before 15 years, was that it would be produced around 2030s, but now
Yes.
it has been produced in 2022
Yes.
end. So what do you think, where is it going? Like we will see robots very soon in 2050s?
I think the technology is already there. It's just that no one has put money to bring the technology to houses. Uh, Hinton, I had the same idea with Hinton, the father of AI, one of the fathers. Last year in a conference, there was a booth, a YouTube channel was asking people, is the advanced general intelligence here already? Do you think it will come soon? And I remember looking at the people talking, and I said, it's of course not here. What is this about? It will take so long. And then when I tried ChatGPT, it was a revelation. I had an epiphany. I was like, this thing is already here. It's just a matter of time before someone gives legs and arms to this algorithm. Consider all the house tools that we could have with ChatGPT, like cooking, get a recipe from the internet for example, chicken masala, buy stuff, have them delivered. All of these things are already doable. It's just that we have not seen investment to create that company yet. Someone like Elon Musk, consider the Tesla electric cars. Before him, it was always dead. He came, he spent money, made it a reality. He can do the same thing for ChatGPT based machines. So we are
Oh.
already there. We need maybe 5 years and some investment.
So do you think that this is leading to sentient AI? Well, I mean, can you first explain what is sentient AI to our viewers who are not in computer science field?
Yeah, so sentient AI means creating robots that feel like human beings, so that act like you. If you would like to see a good movie about this, I recommend Ex Machina. I think it's a 2012 movie talking about a robot that is trying to escape from a house by manipulating humans. Okay, so sentient beings, I'm afraid, will be here, and it will be terrible. So this is the tipping point I was talking about. At the end, how long it will take them to learn how to mine some iron or other materials from the earth, so that they can develop their own kind of regenerate, have
Yeah.
children, and then soon surpass our numbers.
So exactly, like before we discuss more about that, like for developing ChatGPT 3 and 4, we need enormous data. So you discussed in the class that there is a lot of pollution due to that happens to mine that data. So can you explain the viewers how much it is harmful to environment as well while making these kind of models?
Actually, I think the ChatGPT was cost like $20 million just to train. However, the good thing about ChatGPT is that once it is trained, you can release it, and people use it as a. So the main idea is this: there's a huge company that develops these fundamental base models, and then you can take this model and tweak it a little bit and use it in your own setting. So uh, in terms of resources, it is bad, but most of the time we just need it once. So once it is trained, it's not like blockchain, for example. Blockchain, for every block we have so much waste because miners are competing. In ChatGPT, once it is created, it can be shared, it can be used, so it is much more efficient.
Efficient. All right. So with this, all the technologies from the China and stuff, can you also tell us that how does it chip off the revenue from the US companies, US big name companies like Meta, Google? They are also like they are hating the Chinese technology companies because of this.
Yeah, so I was talking to a friend that works at Meta. After these layoffs from Twitter, many companies fired a lot of engineers. And I asked, like, what is going on? Because I am also worried about my students. We are training computer scientists, and it seems like they will not be able to find good paying jobs. Computer scientists will always find jobs, but I don't want them to work for $60,000, $70,000. Okay. So he told me that first they fired the engineers that had low performance, and then the US companies fired the fairness data science teams. I also talked to a CTO from Winnipeg. He also told me that they fired the data science team but not the software engineers. So the reason behind this firing is that US companies are not so profitable anymore because TikTok and other advanced technological companies from China are actually stealing user revenue from Google, Facebook, and others. And my friend told me that they lost around 5%. And the second reason is that users are now more privacy aware, and Apple is developing technologies in iPhones that do not allow user tracking. That
Yeah.
has made it very difficult to build ad models. So their revenues are down, they are firing engineers. With the Chinese dominance in TikTok and other technologies that teenagers use, if this continues, I expect more firing in the US companies.
That's harmful. Now, where does the future of humans go with AI and ML? If all the those robot beings are being developed, and if they start developing themselves, so do you think it is possible that in future the government will pay the humans the 50, like whatever the remuneration, to at least 50% of population who is not that skilled to work and incorporate AI in their work lives, and the only few people would be working, and the more working force will be the robot force, and eventually it will lead to abomination of entire human race on the face of earth, and there will be alien earth.
Yeah, so the living wage, right? I think we will see living wage in the next 10, 15 years because AI will be producing most of the things without human involvement. In this case, humans have all the free time to do stuff. But I see this as a transition period. Eventually, I am sure that AI will find a way to reproduce. After that point, we will be at their mercy. Have you heard of the paperclip theory, if I'm not wrong? It says
No.
AI doesn't have to kill us. If an AI thinks that it is given a task to produce as many paper clips as possible, it does not know why it needs to produce, it just knows that it will produce. So it will take all the resources just to produce paper clips that will not be used by anyone. So that will be an extinction event because humans will not be able to stop it taking everything to just produce paper clips. So they don't have to kill us. They can actually,
Keep producing the robots.
yes, and yeah, take the resources from us.
Now we will move to the next path, next mode of this podcast, and which is the career path. So can you explain like which how do you approach AI as a career path if you are in suppose another faculty, if you are in mechanical or biology or any other field, or even if you are in 10th grade right now and you want to go AI in the future, how do you approach it as a career path?
So one thing is computer science has developed many things, and some of them are useful for AI, and some of them are not so useful. For example, if you want to work on AI, probably you don't need to be an expert in operating systems, and database systems, maybe not. Uh, I advise people to start first with a language. For example, Python is not a good language if you want to learn programming, because Python is a functional language. It hides a lot of implementation details. I advise something like C++ or Java. First, learn a language, because if you cannot speak the language of a society, how can you learn their cultural norms? You need to speak the language first. Learn a language from Coursera. Then take a course on data structures and algorithms. This is actually useful because the data structures that computer scientists have developed, like lists, sets, maps, arrays, these are useful, and you need to know them before you go to AI. Then in AI, it depends on what you want to work on. If you want to work on machine learning in AI, and large language models, actually most of the AI these days, you need to have a good statistical background, and for that, take a course on statistics for data science or something that teaches you. In these courses, I was teaching one at University of Texas at Dallas, to graduate students. It starts from probability distributions like the normal distribution, gamma distribution, beta distribution, and then it goes to hypothesis testing, and it ends with linear regression. So there's a good kind of background to move on to ML. Take this course. Do not start working on ML if you don't understand what is a probability distribution, what is the difference between the normal distribution and, for example, Poisson distribution. You need to know these distributions and stuff well. Then you can go. One very important course is linear algebra. If you are a new student, young student taking these courses, I remember I was taking linear algebra in 2002, and I kind of thought that course was completely useless. I was so wrong. Now I'm trying to relearn the basics. So linear algebra is something that you need to know very well. So programming, data structures, then take the statistical methods for data science, take linear algebra, and you can basically move to machine learning. You need a bit calculus and stuff, but I think it is learnable when you are working. And anyways, in high school, especially in Turkey, they used to teach calculus well. I don't know about these days. From there, in machine learning, of course, Andrew Wu's course on Coursera, I think it is renamed as machine learning models for classification and supervised learning, something like this. You take this and you are almost there. Then you need to go to either robotics, computer vision, subfields like this. After this machine learning course, you can specialize in topics.
So does this path open the job opportunities right now? Because the recently it's a very high competitive field right now. So doing the courses on Coursera, will that help students to get jobs in the field right now?
They need to get certificates. The Coursera is useful because it shows that the person has been trying to learn. If there are, like, in life, you need to do many things that don't give you any bonus points immediately. Machine learning is something like this. You can be an established, for example, worker. You can be 45 years old working in an engineering job and so on. It will still be useful to learn machine learning because it gives you control over what you can do with your data. And data we have in all the companies. Some of them are using efficiently and some others not. There is no age limit. You can be 50 years old. You can be 60 years old. It is still useful.
That's amazing. So which path is the most efficient path? Like doing, if you have money, obviously you can do degrees. So doing degrees, like like you did bachelor's, then master's, then PhD, and taking very little experience, like internships and stuff between those degrees, or choosing to work directly after doing a bachelor's or diploma and directly working into field and climbing up the ladder with your experience under your belt. So which is the most efficient or portable path?
But after bachelor with working, do you still want to come to the PhD or do you want to continue?
No, continuing in the automation, like climbing up the ladder. So
I see.
I know PhD is more focused on the research stuff that you have
Yes.
the curiosity.
Yes.
But if you want to even invent new stuff in AI and machine learning, you want to be an expert. So which is the better path, working or just pursuing the degrees first?
I think in today's I don't know how difficult it is to, for example, find a software engineering job at Google and then move in Google towards the research teams. I think it's very difficult. So having a PhD is something still very useful if you want to work with the top people in companies. Now the problem is that if you, for example, as if you are an undergraduate student in the US, if you go to industry to work for 2 years, the salaries are so good you never come back. You never come back. Like we lose students all the time. Even if the students just wants to work for some time and then come back, the student never comes back. Now if you are in Turkey, for example, you go to a company, the company is not paying you that much money. So it is a good experience to learn coding very well, because students who can code very well have superpowers in PhD, in research, let's say. Most of the time we accept students knowing that they cannot code that well, myself included. So in those cases, working in a good software company, not in a company that just uses you for office works. If you are coding after bachelor, that's a good thing. Now, if they are not paying you well, you should come to another country or start a PhD or master's.
Okay. Now we will move to part three, which is the conspiracy theories, which can be the most interesting part for many viewers. Do you think there is anything called known as Illuminati? Before going that, can you define what is Illuminati for our viewers?
Illuminati, I think that's a secret society of scientists and intellectuals. Uh, if you look at every, like, we always had these secret societies, right? So personally I see them mostly, not the secret societies, but some cultures, for example, has this notion of having a club for intellectuals, for rich people. And I think Britain has very nice clubs. Like in every country in Asia, you will find these uh, what is the name, great club or oriental club or something like this for rich people. You have to pay a lot of money to just enter, become a member. So these societies exist. Academia is also such a society of professors, right? So it would be useful to have. I
Okay.
don't think they have the power to change much, because personally, if I were that rich, I would not be bothered with changing anything. I would live my life.
But there is a theory that suggests that since 17th century there is an elite group that controls every government, like, and whichever governments have corporated since the last 200 years, they have those countries have been progressing so far. So do you think that those group handles all the manipulates everything, just like COVID and everything stuff? Maybe COVID is naturally, but there are many things that has happened, that those conspiracies show that these things were planned by them.
I mean, there is like a convergence of ideas about how the world should develop. For example, one idea is that the world is too crowded. So I don't know if it is a conspiracy theory, but since the 80s, they were always trying to reduce birth rates in developing countries, because they knew that the Western countries were not going to have many children, so the population will decline, but the rest of the world will increase. Is it a conspiracy theory? Maybe. So they are always trying to reduce the human population. And is it useful? I don't know, maybe for the world, but not if you are from these countries. For example, look at Africa. The African population will triple in the next 30 years. Uh, Growing up, we never had, in Turkey at least, we never had influential Africans in the country. African culture was not a thing. But if you are born right now, for the next 30 years, you will see a lot of successful African companies, African artists, uh, football players, and all these things. So it will help them. Keeping their population at the same level will not help them. So there is a conflict between the developing world and the developed world.
Okay. So do you think that coincidentally US has used this to their advantage? Uh, I don't know if it's coincidence or a plan, but they have been using these kind of events in the past, historic events or pandemics, and they have, after those events, they have succeeded their exponential growth.
When you are young, it is easy to buy into these things. But I lived in the US for 5.5 years. The US has the mindset that whatever the situation is, they need to make the best of it. So if a pandemic happens, they immediately organize and say, how can we benefit from it? The other countries don't do it. So US benefits, and then people say it was a conspiracy theory developed by the US. But in reality, they just exploited the situation. For example, in the COVID times, right? Remember, in the first weeks, we did not have any masks. So the people who saw that masks would be very expensive bought large quantities in them. There was a Chinese millionaire, for example, bought them and then sold them later. Can we say that the Chinese millionaire, for example, started the COVID? No. He just knew what to expect and exploited it. I think the the good thing about the US is this: they are planning. They have this capability to give resources to planning alternatives. For example, they will have invasion strategies for Canada if Canada goes wrong. I'm
Okay.
sure that they have it.
So, do you think that all the countries, and now U.S. Pentagon is the most secretive country after all, like that's the most secretive part of or entire Western continents. So, do you think that every country has been keeping secret technologies? Like, do you think the ChatGPT 3 is still behind that than the government? Like, government has far more advanced models in 20 years or 30 years into the future.
Maybe not in this field, because this field is moving with the state of art research in these companies. But I know that, for example, when there was the encryption models, AES and DES, I think, there was always this rumor that the American government could break these encryptions. We never saw proof, but they always said that they had people come in with bags, and the bags would have devices like computers to break them. So in some technologies, yes, consider the drone technology.
Okay.
Do you think that we know everything developed by the countries? We will only see them if there is a war. If there is a war, we will see, for example, consider the Turkish drones used in the Armenian Azerbaijan war. It surprised many people because we knew that we developed the drones, but they were never used before. So people didn't know. So when they saw the first videos of these bombings, people were surprised that Turkey has such an advanced drone technology. I think in many other countries, such technologies exist, but not in large language models. I think large language models are still dominated by OpenAI and all these advanced AI companies.
Okay. Uh, Now, regarding this theories of Illuminati and stuff, do you think like I've seen couple of videos, or I also have talked to my friend who has done this. He has taken the infrared camera uh, and started the video through infrared lens, and then he was using Apple phone. When the phone is on, it takes, and if especially if you're on social media applications or anything, even if it's Apple, when you're on the phone, it takes your screenshot or the front camera shots every 5 seconds. So do you think the Apple is one of the high contenders in this theory, the secret elite group theory? Because its agent series also spelled backwards is iris,
Hmm.
which is keeping an eye on all of you, and the symbol of Illuminati, so-called Illuminati, is also an eye in the triangle. So do you think it's
I mean, if a company can make money, can gain influence from something that already exists, they will use it. Even if the company does not use it, countries will use. For example, the US has this law that they can go to a company and say, open this technology to us or install this backdoor for us. It's the Patriot Act from 2001, I think. So they are allowed to do this. Like all these, for example, you are from India, all these Indian politicians using Apple iPhones, all of them can be spied very easily. It just takes an FBI agent to go, for example, I don't know if it is FBI, but go to Apple and say install a backdoor for this phone, and they are there.
okay?
So even if it is not global, it can be used to target politicians very easily, influential people very easily.
So has China lost the microchip war with US in the this past 2 years?
China has always been coming from a very, very, let's say, poor state, right? So they didn't have anything 15 years ago. Actually, as soon as they started to have issues with the US, they invested money in bringing researchers from the US, from the US companies. Last year, Biden, for example, published published something that said, if you are a Chinese American, if you are working in the Chinese industry of building chips, we will put you to jail.
Oh,
Okay, so all the Chinese Americans one day left their jobs because they had to. Otherwise, they would risk their American citizenship. So China is trying. As far as I know, they cannot build the finest chips that Taiwan is building right now.
yeah.
But China will reach there.
Okay.
China will be there. It's just a matter of time.
So if it does, will it lead the global economy? Like it's, I know that currently it's the second. It like they are very cut to cut with the U.S. economy.
Yes.
Maybe Chinese currency will be in use in next 5 years. Do you think it's see it happening, or India is also right now exponentially growing? There are people are saying even UK in UK there was a conference in which it was said that that India is growing so fast in last 5 years that it has also potential power to become the economy.
Sure. I mean, India is now the most populous country in the world, right?
Yeah.
In the Chinese case, I don't know if the Chinese want their money to be a global currency. They want it to some point, but then they want to have the advantage of making their money cheap so they can sell more stuff.
Okay.
With India, I think India can be more of a world, let's say, power because China is a closed society. You know, in the China, if you read Chinese culture, uh, typically they say that if you allow citizens to move freely between cities, the state will collapse. Have you had something like this in
Yeah.
India? Did you have passports to move from
No, no,
Mumbai to, for example, to other cities, New Delhi? No.
never.
So India is more open. India needs to be more open because you have such diversity. You cannot actually make it a very strict disciplinary country.
No,
It will explode.
yeah, that
It will
can never
explode.
happen in India. So, US and China both had their opportunities while their youth was growing. Now, the China had their youth in the past 10 years, and they reach where they are right now. But
Yes.
now their youth has been exploited. Now
Yes.
everything is aged. Now their average population is about 40. So, and India's average population is still growing. Like it's getting better, and the age is still low. Like it's 20 or something like that. So,
Mm.
do you think that now it's upon the youth? Do you think that many startups that are coming out of India will be their key in the success in next 10 years?
Yes. Yes, it will be. Uh, I don't know how your education system compares to China. China has a very strict education system.
Yeah.
So when I was in China in the last 4 years, I think I went there 5 times or something, and I stayed like 10 days when I went there. They are using technology in their classroom. All the kids' school book, for example, have QR codes for the homeworks and assignments and all these things. I don't know if you have this in India.
No, not yet. But no, oh, I think India was only behind in the technology sector. Like the computer subjects were not early introduced into the education. Otherwise, if compared, the mathematics and science subjects were far too advanced than US or Canada. Uh, Everybody studies calculus in tenth and 11th grade in as compared to other countries. I think China and India has similar mathematics intelligence level, and I think mathematics is a key to your success in the technology field. So only it's demanding that computers can be introduced early in the education.
Yeah, one thing I have been interacting with Indian people since 2008. I think the best rate is that in India you have this culture that parents just take a credit, sell their house, whatever needed to be done. They do it and pay for their children's
Yeah,
education. Like in Turkey, we still don't have this. So, for example, all the Turkish people that you see abroad, none of them took credit, none of them got money from their parents. They all found scholarships and so on. That's why they are here. But with Indian people, all of them are in a constant struggle. Like I cannot get an F because my father's house depend on this
yeah,
grade.
yeah. There are many. Most of the people that are getting average, more than average earnings are the ones that they are the kids of suppose taxi drivers, cab drivers, or something like bus drivers, or working in the construction. So in India, there is specifically one requirement: you have to have at least bachelor's from your parents or diploma. You have to study at least more than 12. Not you can't be 12 pass. And so in the most part of the country it's a very keen compulsion, and I think people earlier were saying that it's a negative impact, but now I can say that it's a positive thing
Yeah,
that will help.
yeah. That focus on education, I think, will be crucial.
Okay, so that will be a wrap. We have done all the questions. Thank you for coming here. Thank you guys for watching it. That will be all.
Thank you, Jainil, for inviting me.
Thank you, Professor.
And like this episode, please hit the like button at the bottom. Please share it with your friends and social media, as they might also benefit from this video. If you want to dive deeper into the technologies, please hit subscribe button and hit the bell icon on our channel, and stay tuned for more videos. Please go watch our second video, which is already there uploaded for you.